Hey, I'm Mitch.
And I'm Greg, and this is Sidenote.
A podcast where every episode we tell stories about and then debate a controversial topic.
And then we research and splice in all the science and mind-blowing information throughout so you are entertained while simultaneously learning. Today we are talking about Juuling, which is inhaling nicotine through the most popular e-cigarette in the world called the Juul. We're going to talk about the first time we ever smoked, our experiences with nicotine and chewing tobacco, and then we're going to get into a heated debate about whether or not Juuling is actually a good or bad thing for society. Today's Side Notes will be presented by myself, Greg, Mitch, and Rachel.
Hey friends, let's get into it.
Just keep
breathing, breathing.
Oh, you got it.
Oh, what?
You took my
Oh, you didn't
bait.
think I would get the bait of like the literal two notes of one of the greatest songs of the year? Yeah, I got it.
Whoa, big words. You think it's one of the greatest songs of the year?
I actually do. Like Breathing by Ariana Grande, if you didn't know.
It's breathe in, not breathing.
No, but I had like a twang. I breathe in.
Yeah.
I didn't say the G. Don't accuse me of that. No, I just think it's a great song. If you listen to it with like good headphones.
Yeah.
And the fact that they
layered.
drop the music at the one part where she starts singing like the chorus. It's so good. And it builds so well.
More by those songwriters. It's the same songwriters who did Into You, which is another amazing
also,
song.
yeah, okay.
And then it's like, just work with them. Don't work with Pharrell.
And
I
it's
mean, I love
also,
Pharrell,
like,
but
Like great message, Ariana. Like breathing, like it's true. Like we
Just
all
breathe.
just gotta get through it. And
Yeah.
like
anxiety's real.
I love her Twitter recently. Like she just like
She is?
spitting out hilarious little tweets.
And I'm just like on her side and like, oh, Pete Davidson's so annoying. I'm so happy that's over. And like, yes. I mean, hopefully in the next week they don't get back together when this comes
Yeah.
out, but into it.
Comment corner. Comment of the day comes from Jane Spillerky.
I thought it was a comment corner.
Oh, it is. A comment corner of the day.
Of the day, in the corner of the day.
At J Spillerky on Twitter
Interesting.
says, my thoughts are, if anyone is using astrology, for anything other than V-light entertainment, I'm not interested in talking to them. Has someone told astrologers that constellations are a 2D representation of 3D star locations? They only
Whoa.
work from this vantage point. #SideNote podcast. Yes. Full agreement there.
So this is from a comment based on our astrology episode last week,
Mhm.
very much in line with you.
For sure. That was part of my point. I never really thought about that. Yeah, like, and those constellation
And
positions in
everything's
3D
moving.
space would have been
Yeah.
moving through time. So do
Huh.
astrologers take that into consideration? I don't think so.
Yeah, I would assume not. Actually, now I'm sort of piecing it together. I get like everything's moving
Yeah.
in a variety of ways.
And the way we see it is just one perspective that
And
the stars
actually-
are and constantly changing.
And light takes so long to get to Earth that literally those stars are
May not even
oh
be
my
there.
God,
They
yeah.
literally may not be there.
Wow. Okay, but still they're physical forces, but like even if
That's
they're far
true.
away.
Like gravity travels, yeah. It would take a while for gravity to go away before the star went.
Still, very good point. Thanks for that comment. That's
Thanks,
interesting.
Jane. Oh, what did we learn this week?
Okay, so what I learned this week.
I
what?
realized you start everything with okay so. Okay so.
That's
okay.
so
Not
rude.
that no, I just that's what I learned this week actually. No. I
Well,
didn't.
wait, doesn't everyone do that?
Probably.
It's a
Okay
thing.
so. Yeah. No, it's all right. I just noticed it and it wasn't meant
Wait,
to be
don't
an
you
attack.
do it too?
I try because I catch myself doing that. I try to find a different way to just like jump right into it or just like, what's a different phrase?
I
you
remember
could use?
Grace and Mamie Hart saying that they when they did their like travel series that's like what the editor said. They're like every single time we edit out
Okay.
a so.
So.
Yeah.
So such a good word to be like, so here we are.
Yeah,
We're
and then
at
it's
the-
like you just got rid of the so and then
Yeah.
it all just
So
works.
try it, Greg. Just pretend we're starting the segment.
Oh, what do you mean? Oh my god. This
this.
week I learned.
Great.
But we just had a jingle that said that. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Just jump into it.
So oh my god.
Like you can't do it, can you?
Wait, okay.
Just
Ah!
say. You just say. Today I
found out that I didn't even find it out today. Oh my god, I'm literally panicking. Okay.
Like,
oh my god, I
Greg-
said okay.
Greg is full beat red right now.
So Bill Gates
So
of the oh my god.
okay, you
Bill
can say it.
Gates of the Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation. Also the guy who invented Microsoft. Okay. Oh my gosh, I can't. I'm freaking
You're
out.
fine. Okay, let's breathe.
Breathe in and breathe
Just
in,
like Ari
breathe
said.
in.
Okay, you got it. Bill and Melinda Gates.
Okay. Oh,
It doesn't matter at this point. I'm not going to call you out on it. Just let it go. I'm
I'm gonna
realizing it's
barf.
very difficult.
Ah! They can't. Okay, you go first. You go first.
Wow. All right. So I said so. This week I learned something that's really related to today's episode. A report came out about the U.S. cigarette smoking rates, which have reached a record low since data collection began in 1965.
Hashtag Juuling.
So it's down to 14% from around 40% in the mid-'60s, but that's when they just like started collecting data, so it could have been much higher before that when smoking first came out and was like really trendy. Yeah, I just thought that was an interesting fact and pretty cool that it's like these methods to cut back on smoking, whether it's like smoking in public and advertising for smoking, have obviously worked over the last like 50 years or so.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like now we know that it really kills you. It's awful.
It's true. It's really bad. They did say something about, I was reading the report, it said 2.1% of people use vaporizers, so that's on top of that 14%. That feels really low to me. So this was just a survey
when's
of like...
this survey done? It was maybe like vaping's getting more popular.
I feel like
every
day, every month it's more popular. But it was still like tens of thousands of people that were surveyed, so... Who knows? I don't want to disagree, just because I feel that way, but I am a little skeptical of that.
Because I see so many vapes on the street. They're everywhere. But that's anecdotal.
Now let's try this again,
Okay.
Greg. What did you learn this week?
Bill Gates. I'm just going to like fly through this. I'm like, Bill Gates invented a sweet toilet. Okay, let's move on.
No, toilet did he invent?
Bill Gates is super into these new... They're not even really new in that like... The way it's described makes you think they exist already, but they don't. He's really wanting to create these toilets that will take your pee, urine, and your feces, poo, and turn it into usable water, fertilizer, and then actually using electrochemical technology, take out the hydrogen to create hydrogen gas as energy. So essentially, when you go to the bathroom, no longer is it just waste with fresh water being used. There's no fresh water used. You create fresh water, you create fertilizer, and you create energy.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's possible, but it's like going to take a long time.
In what realm? Like, is it
well,
just
right now they cost
money?
hundreds of $1,000s to make, and so and obviously I think he's a smart philanthropist and philanthropist.
Philanthropist.
Oh my
Jesus, Craig.
Philanthropist. He's a smart philanthropist.
Okay, you got it.
And so he's thinking about the economics of it. Like China, for example, huge amounts of people live there, and they have actually a lot of, in the rural areas, issues with sanitation. So that's going to probably be the country that's going to economically start to evolve these and really create like practical uses. Although right now in China, there's this other economy of trying to make like the sickest toilet, which has like flat screen TVs and like face processing
on the toilet.
Yeah. So I think that's what he's saying. He's like, no, we need to try and create something that's like energy efficient. But when they say toilet industry, Chinese people are also thinking an industry being like, well, let's also make a sick toilet. Yeah. So there's like lots of things happening.
And maybe the luxury industry can also help subsidize the creation of these.
Exactly. And Bill Gates is hoping to more focus on the side that involves energy and then make them small enough, cheap enough to then go to the majority world and hopefully actually make a difference, because 2.4 billion people, a third of the world, doesn't have access to clean sanitation. 500,000 kids die every year from cholera and diarrhea related to that. And $233 billion is wasted due to cholera and diarrhea because of health costs and like losing work and like the cost of people dying. Yeah. So it's like, it actually, like, obviously when he thinks about it, he's like, we can fix that.
Economically, it makes sense to put the investment in because it saves so much money.
It would be awesome to, like, take a little pee-pee, take a little poo-poo, and create some energy and fresh water. And he's drank the fresh water famously. It's like, it's drinkable, but Rachel and I were talking about earlier, it's gross.
In space, they recycle their pee and stuff to drink, so
yeah, exactly.
It's possible.
It's possible.
Poo is maybe a little more complicated, but still possible, I'm sure.
Poo is more complicated. That is for sure.
Story time.
Story time. Story time. Story time.
Today we are talking about Juuling. Oh my God.
What's Juuling for anyone who doesn't know?
It is a really cool type of vape that looks like a USB. I'm speaking like I have no idea. I'm just trying to be cool. But I've seen them and I know kids love them. Yeah, it's a way to get nicotine into your body more efficiently that kids, I say that like I'm assuming 11 years old and up are getting into, which is bad. You have to be 21
Not
in
just
America.
kids. I'm sure there's plenty of Like Juuling we're
Yes.
using as a subtopic for vaporizing cigarettes.
Yeah,
in the first
60% of vaporizers sold in the U.S. are Juuls.
place. Okay.
and
So
they're-
that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and
today.
they're made by Pax, a company that makes a vape that we use to smoke weed.
Oh.
They sold that company to a Japanese company and then started Juuling. So they obviously know, like, they're really smart business people.
Yeah.
And they're really, really tiny, and they come in flavors like mango. And cigarette smoke is one of the flavors.
That's disgusting. Okay, I guess
I
some people
know.
like that. It might help you transition from. A
I
cigarette.
think that's, like, the purpose.
Okay, what's your story about
So my story, I'm thinking about, when I think of nicotine, I think about a drug that I never really got into. And I think it's probably because the first time that I ever smoked a cigarette was a very awful time. So when I was walking with my friend Ian McKercher to smoke a cigarette, very nervously, very excited, thinking, in grade 9, this is going to change my life. I'm all of a sudden going to be cool.
Oh, like, did you know you were going to go do it?
Yeah.
They were like, let's go smoke.
We were literally going to go smoke a cigarette in a little parkette. And it was like up the street, and me and my friend were...
What's the difference between a park and a parkette?
A parkette's small.
Oh, it's just a little
It was
baby
like
one?
it was literally like near a parking lot of a hospital. It was like a bench
Okay.
and green grass, and it was like far enough away from our houses that we were not going to get caught.
Okay.
And one of our friends had a pack of cigarettes.
Oh.
And I was jazzed because I thought something crazy was going to happen.
Mhm.
So we were walking to get a cigarette. And I was walking up the street with my friend Ian, and all of a sudden, this guy came up behind me and was like, "Give me all your money."
What?
And like
This story took a turn
Yes.
really fast. Is this story about being mugged?
the story is about one of the 3 times I've been mugged. So I was walking up the street. It was dark out, and this guy was like, "Give me all your money." And I was in a super good mood, going to smoke a cigarette, and I turned around and was like, "Okay." I didn't know what was going on, and I was young, and I didn't have a prefrontal cortex, and I was like, "No." Like, what do you like? I was like, "No," and then Ian, my friend, was like, "No." Like, there's 2 of us. There's one of you. I don't know.
Wait, did he have a weapon or he just
didn't have a weapon, but
okay.
then we heard a smash, and we turned around, and another guy had smashed a beer bottle that was now broken and pointing the beer bottle
his
at us.
accomplice?
His accomplice, who I hadn't seen before. And at this point, I was like, I will give you all my money now, because I was like so
I
scared.
don't want to die.
But my friend Ian McKercher had like solid 20s. He, I think at the time, might have been like dealing marijuana. He had money, is my point.
Oh, okay.
All I had was a Subway coupon with 9 of the 10 Subway stickers filled out. So it would have been a free sub, like if you went to Subway after.
No.
And like they
did they take that?
my friend Ian McKercher was like giving over all these 20s, and I kind of felt like I was like inadequate. I was like, okay, this might not seem like I'm giving you any money, but like just so you know, like you can get any sub, and like this is a value. And my
It's
aunt,
like, girl, get that chicken bacon ranch, the most
I
expensive
know, I was
one.
like, there are no rules. You can go ever
Yeah.
sub you want. That's like me giving you $10,
Mhm.
and like they were not impressed. And I felt guilty that like my aunt had given me like a free Nestle watch. Like it wasn't of any value to me. I just like had it. It was like silver. It looked fancy, but like I don't think it was. It said Nestle on it.
Weird.
So like then I was like, ooh, I have my one. I gave like
You're getting excited
I was
'cause you're like, I want to participate. I want to be part
like
of this.
Ian was giving him so much money, and I just felt so. And so I gave them my watch, and they were like, thanks, and they ran off. So anyways, I was not nearly as upset as Ian was, but obviously I didn't like getting mugged. That was like the beginning of this like Freudian, like this was the worst night ever. Then I go to immediately smoke these pack of cigarettes with my friend. Got to the parkette. They're like, Greg, you want to try one? And I'm like, yeah, for sure. I take 2 inhales. I cough, and then I barf all over our feet. Like, it was like Ian, this other guy named Michael, and I was just the guy. Like, it honestly was very little time before I just like vomited in like a circle. Like we were smoking a cigarette in a circle. And
Were they like, what's wrong with you?
Yes, they were just like, they were kind of like, oh, of course, Greg vomited. Like, he's the one that vomits, lol. And I was like, I just got mugged and I vomited. And I was like, cigarettes are not for me. And then I didn't ever smoke them again. Well, I did when I was like drinking. I never smoked them like I didn't become a smoker.
Yeah,
Whereas
you're
my
right,
friends
right.
from that night forward, I saw a couple of them get the nicotine kick and never looked back.
Wow.
So yeah, the trick is to, if you're gonna smoke your cigarette, hopefully get mugged on the way, and then like through like all this like neurons in your brain will make it so that you don't enjoy the concept of smoking.
Each day in the United States, more than 3,000 youth aged 18 or younger smoke their first cigarette. Isn't that wild? According to the National Survey of Drug Use and Health, nearly 90% of all adult smokers began smoking before leaving their teens. Though very little data is collected for kids under 12, the peak years for first trying to smoke appear to be in 6th and 7th grade, or between the ages of 11 and 13, with a lot of kids starting even earlier. And every day, more than 300 kids who have already experimented with cigarettes become new, regular, daily smokers. This is because nicotine is highly addictive, and adolescents who are still going through critical periods of growth and development are particularly vulnerable to its effects. Some will experience tobacco dependence within a day of first inhaling. So one's environment plays an integral role in whether or not someone decides to pick up a cigarette. For instance, those who have friends or parents who smoke are more likely to start smoking than those who don't. Some teens have expressed they started smoking because they thought it made them look cool or tough, or that they were trying to impress a crush. A little side story, when I was 12 and my grandparents or aunt or uncles would come over to visit, I would sneak a cigarette and create a little stash. I would then hang out my bedroom window and moodily smoke. I was going through a bit of a beatnik phase where I would wear all black and drum on an upside down pot and write poetry. Needless to say, pretty freaking cool. Which brings us to the unavoidable factor. The tobacco industry's ads, price breaks, and other promotions for its products are a big influence on our society. The tobacco industry spends billions of dollars each year trying to create and market ads that show smoking as exciting and glamorous and safe and, yes, cool. A 2010 study found that youth who reported having a favorite tobacco ad at the start of the study in 2003 were 50% more likely to have smoked 5 years later in 2008. And in 2016, cigarette and smokeless tobacco companies spent $9.5 billion on advertising and promotional expenses in the US alone. That's $26 million a day. In the same year, the three most heavily advertised brands, Marlboro, Newport, and Camel, just so happened to be the preferred brands of cigarettes smoked by middle school and high school students. Getting kids to have that first cigarette is sometimes all it takes to be a customer for life.
Do you remember chew, or I don't know if it was called, or like dip,
Chew?
like tobacco,
Dip, yes.
chew, or
Yeah.
dip. Like there was, I don't know if this happened everywhere or if it still is a thing because I'm not part of like
I
the
think
bro circles.
It's a broy thing.
It is
isn't
such
it
a broy thing.
baseball?
Oh,
Isn't
is
that
that
what
what
baseball
it's
players
from?
do? I think so, because they're not playing sports all day. They have to like be doing nicotine. I don't know. I should not get
Okay.
overheated. I don't know.
So
what I'm
there was
talking
like
about.
at least a phase in my high school where like suddenly everyone was doing dip. Like, did this happen at your school?
Is that what they say? Are you doing
Are you-
dip?
I don't know. I
Dipping?
don't know. Like dipping or chew. I don't know.
Not in my high school, but at my camp and in university, everyone started dipping.
Okay, so if you don't know what it is, it's like you basically like, you walk around like this little puck that has like chewing tobacco in it.
Even that's broy.
And the puck looks like, you know, a hubba bubba, like what's this called when it's
a
bubblegum tape?
hubba
You know when you get the gum tape? Looks like one of those. But inside it, you grab some like chew or dip or whatever tobacco, and you put it in like in between your lip and your gums. And I guess the premise is that like it kind of cuts it open.
There's
and
fiberglass in it that cuts.
gradually cuts it. So everyone's doing this, which is disgusting by the way, because you
nicotine,
have
though.
to. Yeah, it's nicotine. You have to spit. Well, it's tobacco, isn't it?
Yeah. Sorry, but you're doing it to get a nicotine rush.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of smoking or in
or
tandem
juuling.
with or juuling. But you also have to like spit all the time. And people would carry on bottles of just like spit from what they were doing like in class. Disgusting.
So you never.
I never tried it. It just looked absolutely disgusting. And I think it like ruins your teeth, by the way. And it's like, I'm not ruining my teeth. I'm like the only quear boy here, and I'm gonna keep these teeth fresh.
You were just an Oliver. You knew what your future held.
This is my money maker, okay? So anyway, like we're going on a field trip. So I think this is in like, I don't know. If I said grade school, I meant high school. I think I'm in like grade 10 or something.
Dipping
like
in grade 6.
Yeah. And like, you know how everyone like kind of conglomerates or segregates based on like cool levels. So like I'm not exactly like right beside what's about to happen, but like, you know, all the cool dudes sit alone and they're all like
Wait, where do they
dipping.
sit? Where are
Like,
we, on a bus?
Yeah, at the back of the bus. You know, that's like where the cool kids. Did you not take a bus to school?
I never took a bus to
Oh
school.
my gosh. And yeah, so I took like a classic yellow bus to my school.
Oh my god, neat. That's
but this
so
was a field trip, so everyone everyone kind
But
of
I
finds
still,
their spot.
honestly, like I've like barely ever been in a big yellow bus. That's a
Well,
thing of the movies for me.
It's a thing of the small town, girl.
So is it still, even when you're just taking it to school, it's still cool people at the back? You get nerdier
yeah.
to the front.
Like, basically. And
Were you in the
cool
middle?
/ older. Yeah, I think I'm like middle front. Okay?
Because you don't want to sit right
I'm
at
not
the
like
front.
a keener. I'm not like, I need to get off, but I'm like, I feel uncomfortable being at the back.
Oh my God.
And they're all just like being their cool bros, doing their dip or whatever. But I guess one of them who's kind of like, he's like plays sports, but he's like not super cool. But I think he wants to be part of like the cool bros.
Oh, I can
He's doing-
think exactly the
You know who
people
I
in
mean,
my
right?
head.
You know what I mean, right? Like the guy who you're like, they make fun of you, but okay, fine. You're
The
gonna
one
hang
that
out with them,
didn't peak in high
whatever.
school and probably is the CEO right now. You know what I mean?
True.
Yeah.
So he doesn't realize that like swallowing it is bad for you. And I don't fully actually understand this, but you're not supposed to you're supposed to spit out for a reason because, well, nicotine, like I'll get into this later in the debate, is literally a poison to your body, and it's like originally used as an insecticide. So you're supposed to spit out. So after a while, this story ends similar to yours, literally barfs everywhere on the bus.
Because he's swallowing it.
And I feel like this happens in movies. It happened in front of me. He tries to get some of his barf out the window, flies into another window behind
The physics
him.
experiment is true.
Yes. So everyone's just like screaming. He's fully shamed. He's
You're
so
running to the back of the
embarrassed.
bus to see.
Oh yeah, no, I'm way too scared to go to the back of the bus. I'm just like, I can't even laugh at them because
You're like,
they'll beat me up.
boys. Yeah.
Stupid boys. But yeah, it was just a disaster. I felt so bad for him. He must have felt
You've
such
never
shame.
dipped?
Never. Have you?
I dipped once.
No.
Yeah, but I was drinking and I had the exact same thing. I got a head rush, had to put my head between my legs and was like, I can't do this.
I did once try a cigarette and also was like, I don't understand how anyone gets past that first smoke because it's disgusting.
And it really affected me, both of them.
But I can only imagine that dip's the same. You're just putting like nasty
It was
stuff.
really intense because I was older. Like when I was younger and threw up, I was like, oh, I'm in grade 9. Maybe my body, like my lungs literally aren't like fully grown. But this, I was in like university and I put it in my mouth and you kind of, it tastes not like bloody, it tastes like metallic, and you really do taste it. And I almost immediately felt such a head rush that I had to like spit the whole, it actually just fell out of my mouth onto the ground. And my friend Allie, I was doing it with too, did the exact same. We just like spat it out on the ground. And then we kind of, I just had a full head rush and had to put again, not cool. Like I was like, I'm not doing this. This is not meant for me. But people at my camp all the time, they were dipping.
It's gross.
And it wasn't even really encouraged because of like the kids, so like they thought that they were being so stealth, but I was always like, your bottom lip is like huge. Like the kids just don't know what dipping is. They just think you have like you just got punched in the bottom lip. Like it was so weird.
Yeah, you're right. It's like really weird to have like something shoved in that lip part.
And sometimes they'd talk and their teeth would be black because and you'd be like, your teeth are black. Like
brush your teeth. Like if you're gonna do it, at least bring a toothbrush with you. Anyway, my lesson of the day: don't swallow your dip. Why is vomiting associated with tobacco? Though I'm pretty sure the many, many chemicals in cigarettes don't help, it's actually the nicotine itself that is the poison. Yes, I've said it and I'll say it again many more times. Nicotine is a poison. It's literally used as an insecticide, which means it's meant to kill bugs. Tobacco farmers can actually get sick from absorption of nicotine on their skin just by carrying wet tobacco plants. A lethal dose that's enough to kill half of any population of adults is only 0.5 to 1 milligrams per kilogram for adult humans, but it's even worse for kids at 0.1 milligrams per kilogram. This means that a kid can have 5 times a higher risk of poisoning from nicotine. Not to mention that they weigh a lot less than adults in general. One cigarette is enough to poison a kid and cause them to vomit. However, death from one cigarette is highly unlikely. Nicotine at low doses acts as a stimulant of nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, which are found throughout your nervous system, but at high doses, nicotine creates an inhibitory effect on these receptors and can depress the system. But chew or dip seems to have an even greater effect. Have you ever watched the movie The Sandlot? Do you remember when they vomited on the carnival ride while chewing tobacco? This seems like a pretty universal experience associated with dip. The nicotine content in one serving of dip or chew or snuff or chewing tobacco, whatever the heck you want to call it, can deliver 5 times the amount found in one cigarette. And if you accidentally swallow it, things are way worse. All this to say, nicotine is a poison. Stay away, people.
So we're going to take a short break, and right after, we're going to come back and get into our debate about Juuling. I think it's a good thing. Mitch doesn't think so. So we're going to bring the science, and you can see which side you end up on. We just want to take this time to thank you all so much for listening to this podcast and engaging with us online. And we just want to ask you again to make sure you subscribe, make sure you leave a comment and like it wherever you can, however you're listening to your podcast. That really helps with the algorithm so that other people see it. But again, we started this not that long ago. It was a project that we really wanted to do. We're having so much fun with it. We love interacting with you. We love making these podcasts. So we're just thrilled and excited to know that you're actually listening and enjoying them. So essentially, thank you.
Juuling.
Juuling. J-U-U-L.
Juuling.
No, what is it? What do you think Juuling is based off of? A joule.
A joule?
The unit of energy, the amount of energy it takes to make 1 gram increase by 1 degree Celsius.
Actually?
Right? Yeah.
Okay, I'm kind of into it. Okay, I smoke Juul now. It's so sciencey. No, okay, we have our debate. So Juuling, to clarify, is a form of vaporizer
a very popular form of
for
vaporizing.
nicotine.
Yes.
And Greg will be coming in with the argument that Juuling, how do you want to propose this?
That Juuling is a good thing.
Okay. And I, on the other hand, will be saying that Juuling is a bad thing. Greg, I think it makes sense that you kick this one off.
I will kick this one off. I will kick it right off.
Okay. Are you ready to go?
Is the Pope a Catholic?
Yes. Okay, well, your time, you can start right now. Debate time.
Okay, so Juuling, dang it, I just started with okay. Juuling is an extremely popular trend right now in order for people to get nicotine into their bodies. And reading about this, a lot of epidemiologists think if we were to go back 10 years from now, we would be thinking this is brilliant, that we have been able to make a product that people are actually using that is safer and healthier than smoking. Something like the patch, something like gum. None of these things ever caught on because they didn't actually have the same sort of like physical relationship to smoking that so many people needed. There's a social aspect, there's a cool aspect, there always is going to be that aspect, and Juul actually contributes to these while being much safer. So the reason it is much safer is because there's only 5 ingredients in it. Propylene glycol, oh my gosh, I forgot. Butane, nicotine, whatever. There's 2 other ingredients. But these specific ingredients are, right now, they don't know. Obviously, there needs to be more research into the long-term effects, but they are much safer than cigarettes. Cigarettes, on the other hand, have hundreds of ingredients, including all these really scary, unregulated, messed up things that help like make the absorption of nicotine better. They actually... it's so weird to me that the additives in smoking that they actually use to make the experience different are what causes so much of the cancer, including the fact that you're actually burning something, which means there's a combustion reaction, which is extremely bad when it comes to cancerous producing chemicals that go into your lungs. Juuling, on the other hand, there is no combustion reaction, so it is much safer. That's one thing
30 seconds
that you cannot argue, is that it is safer than smoking. And therefore, as animals, we drink coffee all the time. We need drugs, okay? If they're available, we use them. We know that. And sometimes just saying, oh, you have to stop doing drugs altogether doesn't work, and we know that. So Juuling is this really interesting in-between moment where it's cool. People are actually excited about it. I read an anecdote of a quote where a kid says, like, smoking's literally for losers. Everyone's Juuling now, and that's a good thing.
Okay, nice job. I just want to point out that you did that without any notes or anything in front of you. Like,
it's because I wrote I wrote an upcoming video about Juuling.
Yeah.
For ASAP Science.
I have like a laptop open.
No, that's totally okay.
Yeah. Do you?
I was so embarrassed I forgot the other ingredients.
That's fine, but that's why
glycol,
I'm covering for you.
Glycerol.
Okay.
Butane.
Someone fact check this after.
I don't even know if it is butane. Oh god.
No, it's okay.
The last one is just added food grade flavoring. Okay, so I am just here to explain to you that butane is not in your e-Juul liquid. It is not in Juul vapes. Butane is lighter fluid. Butane is extremely dangerous if inhaled. Butane can literally make you have SSDS, which is sudden sniffing death syndrome. So, I was not right about butane being in Juuls, okay? What I was thinking of was benzoic acid. They both had B's, okay? So I'm here to be vulnerable and let you all know science is extremely hard. So, Juuls, they have 5 ingredients. 1, benzoic acid. 2, a nicotine solution. 3, glycerol. 4, propylene glycol, and 5, food-grade food flavoring. So these things together are all that is in a Juul vape. And the benzoic acid, the thing that I mixed up with butane, again, no butane in your Juuls. The benzoic acid is the interesting thing that they realized when mixed with nicotine actually mimics the rapid nicotine delivery that cigarettes have. And so that is why it is such an important chemical. So again, butane, not in Juul vapes, benzoic acid is, and there's only 5 ingredients.
Okay, can I start whenever?
On your mark, get set, go!
Okay, well, first of all, what you just said made me realize that, like, why would we only argue that doing something a little less worse? Like, yeah, okay, it's a little better, but let's not forget the fact that juuling actually makes more people smoke. So, like, yeah, vapes may be used to avoid smoking inhalation, but bringing smoking smoke into your lungs, but oh my gosh, sorry. Nicotine is not good for you. Like I said before, it's literally a poison. It was used as an insecticide. It's not a good thing to get into. So why are we only fighting to just like do something a little worse? Like when we try to make people healthier, we don't go like, oh, instead of having like the worst McDonald's thing, just have like, it's okay as long as you're just having like a little less of a
We
worse
literally
thing.
do that, but continue.
Do we? Okay, we'll get there. So vaping was created to stop people, but it's actually causing more people to smoke. And what do you think will happen when people who are addicted to juuling don't have access to a Juul? They'll go buy cigarettes. Like if you're addicted to nicotine and you're like, oh, my Juul's out of batteries, I don't have one, whatever, I'm traveling, I'm going to go buy cigarettes. It's way more convenient. Kids are smoking in classrooms because they can get away with it. You can smoke anywhere. It's very discreet. And studies have shown that young people who use e-cigarettes are significantly more likely to try conventional cigarettes later on. Juuling is considered a gateway drug that literally encourages youth to pick up smoking. Even though they said it was invented to stop people from smoking, it's doing the opposite. One Juul cartridge contains more than a whole
30
pack
seconds.
of cigarettes. 30% of adolescents, though, don't even know that it contains nicotine in it. They think it's just a fun device that's like cool. Juul Labs themselves have admitted it's unclear whether their products actually help at all, and the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute suggests that smokers actually have less success quitting if they use e-cigarettes because they just become addicted to that.
5 seconds.
There's not a lot of long-term data, but the CDC warns that they still may expose you to cancer-causing agents, and for that reason, it is no better than smoking.
Wow. Bam. Bam, 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 bam.
Fine, I shouldn't say it's no better. It's better, but it's no. In my mind, you gotta quit.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, let's get into this because I totally disagree. So, one thing you said was that people don't actually, like, when you're trying to get people to become healthier with, like, eating or with anything, it's like, yeah, no, it's so hard to do things cold turkey.
There is an interesting debate to be had around changing behaviors and habits. Do you go cold turkey, aka abruptly cutting something out of your life? Or do you do everything in moderation and start reducing a habit slowly, but occasionally allow yourself those vices? This debate can apply to a lot of different things, but let's investigate what the research has to say when it comes to dieting. A 2015 PLOS ONE study surveyed over 5,000 adult men and women and tracked their diets and waist circumference over time. They found that participants who had diverse diets, meaning they ate a little bit of everything in moderation, gained more belly fat over time. However, a study out of Tel Aviv found something different. The study had 2 groups of dieters, one that was restriction dieting, i.e. cold turkey, and one where there was moderation dieting, where things like dessert were still allowed. After 4 months, both lost the same amount of weight, but in the second 4 months, meaning after 8 months total, the restriction group gained the weight back, while the moderate group continued to lose weight. These are opposing results, which happens in science. There is a lot of complexity at play. What will work for one person could be a disaster for the other, and vice versa. However, researchers who have chronicled dieting over decades have found that over the long term, it simply doesn't work. After you diet, so many biological changes happen in your body that it becomes practically impossible to keep the weight off. It's easy to fault willpower and perseverance, but this mostly isn't the case. So, radical idea, consider rejecting diet culture altogether and focus on fueling your body with things that make you feel good, whatever that means to you.
that is maybe a struggle, but I don't think anyone says like yeah, it's like, okay, if it's just because you're eating a lot of calories, let's try and like step your calories down, but you don't say like, here's a really shitty thing, have like a slightly less shitty
Yes,
thing.
it's like literally why people say you should have cheat days so mentally you can get through it.
Yeah,
or
but a
whatever.
cheat day is not the same as like just stepping down from doing something really awful. I guess
It
I understand,
is.
but why wouldn't that step then be like cutting down? Like there's no program to say, oh, you have a Juul, now smoke it, but then every few weeks you need to smoke it less and less and less.
That's
Like
true.
one other thing that came up was that nicotine replacement therapies have been shown to really only be effective when you're being advised by a professional. That's why those other types of things are hard, and that's why even like having a really healthy diet is hard. But when you work with someone, if you have an issue with like your health in any way, working with a professional is the best way to do it. And I feel like I don't know the pretense under which Juul was created. Like I don't know a lot about their company or vapes in general, but it's a capitalist. It's a marketing strategy. They want people to smoke more.
So is the cigarette industry. The cigarette industry is disgusting. When you actually learn about the history of it, it's like it's unbelievable in retrospect, because you learn about all these things that they added, all these things that they put into cigarettes to make them more addictive, to make them simultaneously
I'm not
more
defending the cigarette
dangerous.
industry in any way.
But think about our lives. Think about going back into high school. The only option for getting nicotine was cigarettes. The only option for being cool when you want to smoke is cigarettes. These literally physical things that are tobacco being burned with paper, so dangerous for your lungs. Now, there's this new product created that fills that same void of what is cool, what is going to actually make these people smoke. And culturally that's going to happen.
Here, you just said it. It's making them smoke.
But my point is that that's going to happen.
More young people are smoking because of Juul.
Yes.
As opposed to people stopping smoking.
But
or,
that's my
or
point. That's
transitioning
not going to
from-
happen. Are you trying to say that you actually think that young people are just going to stop smoking? When we
I'm
think
not
about
saying
it,
that. I'm definitely saying it's a good alternative in some ways for someone who's already a smoker. But what you're wrong about is that this is turning people who are not smokers and maybe never would have been into smokers or into vapors.
But it's
rather.
hard to say that, because young people, as we know, that's when people start to smoke cigarettes. It's what, for a variety of reasons, it becomes a cultural thing to do across the world. If you could actually replace that with this specific thing that is healthier, does not cause nearly as much cancer, from an epidemiological perspective, you're going to be helping the world. It's like trying to ask people to not do things cold turkey, but actually trying to get them to do a healthier alternative.
Well,
and because it's
okay.
actually cool,
Let's
it's working.
Just address, though, that you're being really presumptuous. Like, you don't know that. There's literally no studies on this. Why aren't we waiting to really, there should be, I think,
Because
we
you
should be
can't
holding
tell-
back
because in an
until we
ideal-
understand like the long-term effects of this.
But
Even
we know that it's safer than cigarettes, so why would we hold back on something? Like, if
because
you
we don't
flip
know
the
what
table,
but we don't know what else could come from. Like a lot of vaporizers, maybe not
these
Juul,
ones
I
do
don't
not
know.
have diacetyl.
Okay, but a lot do, and they didn't realize like
we have to
people,
explain that.
so people were
Diacetyl-
getting like
yeah.
popcorn lung, which is like it's a similar chemical that's like used in
They weren't even getting popcorn lung. People were inhaling a chemical, diacetyl, which is used for popcorn flavoring. And it gives some people popcorn lung when they were inhaling the flavoring. Literally, people who worked at the factories of popcorn. Like, popcorn factories were the only people getting popcorn lung. The point is that diacetyl, that compound in this popcorn flavoring that's bad for your lungs, was used in some vapes to flavor them.
in many.
Yeah, but not in high enough quantities that they ever actually would have thought it would correlate to popcorn lung. But it could in the future. We
That's
don't
all I
know.
mean.
But
It's-
diacetyl's not used in
it's a
Juuls
risk
for that
something
reason.
that's literally considered.
But they're not in
Yeah, but
Juuls.
Juul's only like 30% of the market. It's a big
60% of the market.
No,
60% of vapes in America sold are Juuls.
I have a different stat here.
Well, I have a different stat. So now we're now,
Fake news.
now we're getting
Fake
into
news. I'm trying to scroll through my
very
notes.
interesting.
Okay, I might be wrong. Anyway, we can. Yeah, we can.
Oh,
check
anyway,
it
we're
out.
just gonna breeze past.
No, I
this
can't.
Inaccuracies.
No, we're probably gonna do a friggin' side note on it, okay? Because neither of us have I don't know what the right thing is.
Mitch's statistics regarding Juul's market share came from a Wells Fargo report from late 2017, while mine, Greg's stats, was from a May 2018 report. So, yes, in this debate, mine was a bit more up to date, but it turns out that we were actually both wrong, as the latest report, released in September 2018, has pegged Juul's market share at an incredible 72%. So that means that right now in America, 72% of e-cigarettes sold or vape cigarettes sold are Juul vapes. Researchers from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention attribute this meteoric rise in the popularity of Juuls, at least in part, to the e-cigarette's appeal amongst teenagers. The report showed that over the past year, the use of e-cigarettes in high school had increased by almost 80%. Youth smoking e-cigarettes is so ubiquitous that the FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb has described the phenomenon as nothing short of an epidemic. The FDA has gone so far as to raid Juul's headquarters as part of an investigation into whether or not Juul had been deliberately marketing their products to teenagers. Then, on November 15th, 2018, literally a week ago, the FDA announced sweeping restrictions on e-cigarettes and other flavored tobacco products in an attempt to curb this growing number of teenagers who are picking up this nicotine habit. Like, they do not want another generation of people addicted to the drug nicotine. So from now on in America, traditional retail outlets like convenience stores are only allowed to sell tobacco, mint and menthol e-cigarette flavors. So therefore, there can be no fruit or sweet flavored varieties. You can only get those at age-restricted stores or on websites that require age verification. Companies like Juul and other e-cigarette companies have also said that they support these efforts to reduce youth access. Juul has gone so far as to eliminate some of their social media accounts, which had been a significant engine for their marketing campaigns to teenagers, potentially. They've also pledged an initial $30 million to independent research, youth and parent education, and community engagement efforts.
Okay. What I wanted to say, though, is something like, not only do I think more studies need to be done, okay, fine, I agree if we think it's a better alternative, but it kind of reminds me of what I read recently about naloxone, which is to help people who are having overdose on other drugs. Or what drug is it for? Opioids, yeah.
Fentanyl is the main reason.
So fentanyl, when people were overdosing, like there's a drug that people can carry called naloxone that you inject into someone.
You can get it for free.
Yeah, and you help them and it saves their lives. But what has resulted from that, I'm not saying that we should stop giving naloxone, and I'm not a doctor and I don't know a lot about this, but they found that people are now willing to push themselves further with drugs because they have a safety to it. So they think, oh, like I can risk getting higher because I literally have a drug that's going to save my life here. I just think there's a lot that can happen. We're not talking about that, but what we are talking about is the fact that we're promoting something for the merit that it does have, but I'm not disagreeing. But you're kind of ignoring the fact that, like, the actual answer is to stop people from smoking and use other programs that actually discourage them. Because, yes, Juuling might be a step towards something good, but it could also be a step towards lifelong addiction to nicotine.
Yeah, okay.
Which could be a bad thing. And like I said, do you not agree that people, if they don't have a Juul handy, then would just turn to cigarettes? The only studies that exist show people are more likely to smoke cigarettes if they smoke Juul.
But they're going to be smoking less cigarettes than they did before. My point is that nicotine, you're right, and I'll get behind this as someone who was mugged and then barfed and didn't get into nicotine. Nicotine is extremely addictive. It is a drug. And I think at the crux of all of this, it would be great if people weren't addicted to nicotine. It would save them money. It would save their lungs. Okay, fine. I get that. In an ideal world, of course, we would want the human population not to be addicted to nicotine. But we don't live in an ideal world. People are stressed. People need their vices. And nicotine happens to be a very Wait, let me finish. Nicotine happens to be a very popular one.
No.
And one in which people have always, for centuries, been using cigarettes, which we now know kills you. Okay?
I've got a great point. Just load it up here.
Then, now we come along, and there's this new alternative that is proven from a health scientific perspective to be healthier. It's now cool, which is, again, is a really important factor because the gum and the patches weren't working. No one wanted to do that. And it's making people still get their nicotine kick. I agree. That's not necessarily a good thing. It's a very powerful, very addictive drug that hijacks your brain. But at least their lungs are being saved in the meantime. And I really do think that if we zoom out and really look at this moment in history, it is a good thing and not a bad thing.
Then how about this? Why
I'm so scared.
Aren't they prescription? If we actually cared about making people stop smoking, we would only give it to people who smoke.
No, because people are going to find their way to get nicotine.
Yeah, but that's the same argument for guns. Like, people say, like, oh, but if you just take away guns, like, people will just find them. No, if you limit it to the people who need it most or who, like, you do, like, limiting gun access.
So you mean that, like, the government should actually step in and take away people's nicotine? And
or,
all nicotine.
Or say, like, why, if they really truly cared about Juul or any vaporizer, if they're so sanctimonious to be like, we're helping people quit smoking. The thing I'm saying is
they're not saying we're helping people quit smoking.
A lot of them do, and a lot of people argue that that's what it's for. So then why is it being given to people who do not smoke.
Well, it's not being given to people who do not smoke.
Well,
it's
you
a
can
choice.
buy it, but I mean, you can buy
But
it
that's
from
because
the store.
that's a regulation that's happened around the world that governments have decided that nicotine is a drug like caffeine that we're not going to regulate because it's actually not, inhibiting.
So that's what I disagree with. I think if people
So you think
really,
nicotine should be actually governmentally controlled?
well, if this is causing a literal epidemic and huge burst of people smoking, and we don't actually know the long-term results yet.
So you think smoking also should be government controlled?
Well, I didn't say that, but because that's a much more difficult industry to regulate because it's been around for so long. There's so much
is
money.
vaping.
No, because it's a new industry, and that's probably what's going to happen.
So you're saying that we should stop people from vaping and continue to allow them to smoke?
No, I say the access to vaping should be gatekeeper. There should be someone who, your doctor,
but then people
should
are
say,
just going to smoke.
You want to quit smoking? No. My whole argument is that more people are starting to vaporize because they don't think it's bad for them. They don't see that there's any risk associated with it, but they may never have smoked in the first place. Sure, I totally agree. People who already smoke, this vaporizing is a great alternative, especially if you don't want to quit smoking. Switch to vaping.
But people who start smoking also don't think it's bad for them. You're young. You don't have a prefrontal cortex. It gives you a bit of a high. It makes you cool. They're not thinking this is bad for me. They're thinking this is this fun drug. That's what happened when we started smoking weed or drinking. They're all bad for you, but you start to do them because there's peer pressure and there's
we stop access to all drugs for young people anyway. We try our best and it minimizes it, but now this is becoming a huge thing.
You're supposed to be 19 to get them. That's what
exactly,
I'm saying.
but I'm just
or
saying,
21 in America.
Obviously, it's an issue of access because anyone you don't probably need. Do you need an ID to buy it? Maybe you do.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
Well, you order them online, and then when they come to your house, you need an ID.
Okay, so it's the same as
yeah,
marijuana
you have
in
to be
Canada now.
19. We're
okay,
speaking.
So there are some limits in place,
yeah,
right?
Yes.
But okay, all I'm saying, in my opinion, is Juuling should be used and vaporizing should be encouraged for people who already have smoking addictions or are smokers, but it's unfortunate that it's going to pick up a lot of people who never would have done it in the first place.
Well, it's an interesting discussion because even when doing the research, it's heated on both sides. There's scientists who are freaking out thinking this is awful, and there's scientists who are thinking, oh my God, this is the gift that we've been waiting for in this whole tobacco industry nightmare that has been our lungs for the last little while. And smoking is the number one preventative is the number one killer that could be prevented in America. Hundreds of thousands of people die from smoking every year. So it really is a perspective thing. I can tell you believe what you think and I believe what I think, and we're both kind of not wrong. That's why I think Juuling is such an interesting thing that's happening right now. And it is really amazing to me to go online and see the popularity on Instagram, to see the visual social media feeling behind it, because when we had smoking when we were younger, we just had peer pressure from our friends and from advertising. We never had this new form of media to influence us to do something, which is now Juuling.
Okay, I mean, I don't know that we're gonna really agree.
Yeah, sometimes we usually have this weird agreement moment, but I'm we don't agree on this. That's interesting though, and I think people are probably at home on one side or the other, and so I am curious what people actually think. And there's a lot of research on this, and it's a hot
there's
topic.
Not a lot of research. I think in context to smoking, there's not a lot of research. That would be my argument, that it's still so young that's why.
But there's only 5 chemicals. They've done it. They have enough research on those.
Okay, but they don't necessarily have the long-term research on the effect of vaping on people. So anyway, let us know your opinions on these things, and if there might be some cool research that we've never come across. I don't actually know how much research there is, but I just have read that there's comparatively not a lot. But let us know your opinions. You can use the hashtag Sidenote Podcast or tweet directly at us at WhaleWatchMePLZ and at Mitchell Moffitt.
I'm gonna go hit my Juul, babe.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I don't even Juul.
No, you do not Juul. I do not.
But there's
Juul.
mango flavor.
Oh yeah, see, there's tricking people into thinking it's tasty.
There's menthol cigarettes. Okay, come on. Oh my God, we can get back into this, but we gotta move on.
It's capitalism. It's evil. Yeah, stop pretending that companies care about people's health.
True.
Anyway, let us know your thoughts, and we're excited to see if you have strong opinions as we do. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.
Bing.
Bye.